here we are, business owners talking about leadership, and we're looking at somebody who's worth, $10 billion. Oh, they're my God, they just did everything. They sold their software company, whatever. And like, for all we know, that guy has a terrible marriage. He hates his life. Yeah, he's got more money than God, but like, he's kind of bored. It's just tough to evaluate, really. I don't want to say who's winning, but like even what winning looks like. Both of us, I think, subscribe to the idea that it's a lot more fun and it's a lot better to try to be the best in your space.
Hell yeah.
As opposed to being a commoditized like middle ground. When I was younger, I think I always knew I was a little weird in the sense that I always kind of beat to my own drum. And I got really lucky because what that weirdness was, the kind of beating to your own drum, was supported by a couple of things that kind of lined up. One,
welcome to the Higher Form Podcast, where high performance meets real life. We talk about how to grow with intention, lead with clarity, and feel strong in every season. Welcome back to the Higher Form Podcast. Today we're sitting down with a true serial entrepreneur, Mr. Braden Posey. He is coming to us after having experience opening up multiple businesses across the Kansas City area and even all of the Midwest. Also a dad, a husband, and an overall good dude. Excited to have you here, man.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, man. I feel like we have probably the same conversation we're going to have when we're off the air, just like probably once every couple of months when we come and sort of chat.
Yeah, I know. And it ends up being like, hey, let's connect and talk for a bit. And like 2 hours later, we're like, all right, we should probably get back to
and
what
we always threaten to like get our families together, but then it just ends up us talking about business and then just talking about maybe like doing something fun.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, when you have as much on your plate as you do, I imagine it's probably hard to squeeze a whole lot in outside of just doing business and doing regular life. Yeah,
Yeah, so I did this like exercise the other day where it was supposed to be like judge your life. So it's like it's like self, family, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like you rank them and all this. And it was like friends. And it was like 1 to 6. And I was like, oh, that's 6.
Yeah.
But not because I'm antisocial, but yeah, just sometimes you get busy. And I think once you have kids, as you understand, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yep.
Is, the Saturdays and the Sundays that you used to have free time and do stuff, it just becomes kind of consumed with your children, which is worthwhile. But during their toddler years and stuff, it's just that it is what it is.
For sure. And I think that we're even at the phase right now where our oldest is about to turn 4, or just turned 4 when this will air. But we were just recently at the park and we stroll up and one of his buddies from daycare was there. And then all of a sudden we end up talking to those parents. I'm like, this is the light at the end of the tunnel of us having a social life again, is connecting with other toddler parents and being like, oh man, we actually have something in common.
When I remember my mom was telling me when she first had me, she's like, it was really weird to be known as Braden's mom. Mm-hmm. You're no longer like yourself.
Yeah.
And so like I have Harper, my daughter, and it's like, oh, this is Harper's dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think you actually know my name, do you? And they're like, no, this is basically just Harper's dad.
Dude, and to that point, we stroll into daycare to drop both of my boys off, and one of the 2 kids that was there at the park that day is like walking by with one of the daycare people, and they're like, that's Julian's dad.
Oh, yeah.
That's Elliot's dad. I'm like, that's me. I have a name. Yeah. I never thought about myself as being just the dad,
Yep. And then eventually you'll just be like the old dad.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, oh, my dad just sits and watches the news every night.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of those like stereotypes are things that slowly but surely come to life week by week. I'm like, damn, I am doing the thing that I always judged my dad for being old for doing.
So we have neighbors. They're young. They don't have kids. And it was like a couple months ago. And I was out on a Friday night at like 8 o'clock at night potting a plant on our front stoop. And I'm like,
that's some dad shit right there.
Yeah, but it was a beautiful plant. Shout out to Family Tree Nursery if you've not been. So I'm potting it, and they come out, and the dude's wearing like a chain. He looks great. They're going out to dinner. The wife's like super dressed up, and we kind of make eye contact, and I could tell they're trying to be nice, and they're like, "Oh, what do you got going on tonight?" And I just kind of look at them, and I look at my pot. I'm like, "I'm just potting a plant." I'm like, "What about you?" And they're like, "Oh, well," and then they told me like these just awesome, 29-year-old plants.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
You obviously don't have kids yet.
Yeah, you don't know what it's like. This plant is, I mean, this is going to be something.
Yeah, this is going to be my evening.
Yeah, so.
Well, yeah, man. So let's dive in a little bit.
Yeah.
You are somebody that I came across. We'd met through just me learning about KITCH.
Yeah.
And I love what you guys do there. And then when we did get a chance to finally sit down and talk, it was crazy to hear how much you had going on outside of KITCH. And I've always admired you for how much you have on your plate, but I would never really understand that if I just came across you in a casual conversation. So I think it's cool that you've got so many different business ventures. What do you think really got you into, entrepreneurship? What pulled you into being a business owner, and how'd you really get into all the things you have going on now?
So when I was younger, I think I always knew I was a little weird. In the sense, no, well, I am weird, but in the sense that I always kind of beat to my own drum, but I never translated that to business. Like there's
Yeah.
people that I think they start out and they're like, oh, I ran a lemonade stand when I'm 10. And then at 15, I started detailing my, cars in my, neighborhood. And then at 18, I was slinging, some whatever food product that I bought on this little cart. Like that was not me. I did well in school, kind of did the standard, went to college, played sports. I always joke not very well, but played sports, played soccer, and then went to law school. And it was about halfway through law school, I realized that one, law school sucks. I thought I was going to be like, Law and Order, standing up in front of people. And it's more like being a librarian. It's really like being a research librarian. And at that point, I was working out all the time. I was like going to class, but didn't like totally care. I just wanted to do well enough that I wasn't like an embarrassment when I graduated. And I got really lucky because what that weirdness was, the kind of beating to your own drum, was supported by a couple of things that kind of lined up. One, when I was an undergrad, I'd worked at Supplement Superstores in Shiloh, Illinois, which eventually, if you're not familiar with it, it's a very popular nutrition store franchise in the Midwest. And it really blew up basically in the time that I was in law school. So basically, during the time that I worked there, it was kind of a slower business, sort of a standard mom and pop thing. And then it grew 100% a year for like 5 years straight.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the culture. I really enjoyed, at the time, the guy who owned it, he still owns it, Andy Frisella, who's really grown. He started First Form now, which is a big company. They've done hundreds of
very
million
well
dollars.
known, crushed.
Exactly. Yep. But being exposed to that and the way that he cast vision and kind of just inspired people to like think about more than just, hey, you just work a 9 to 5 and do whatever. And that's fine. But that started me on the path of like personal development, really kind of driving home a lot of that, hey, work harder, be better, try to improve yourself, etc. And then when I was in law school, I was buying protein actually from my future business partner who owned a little mom and pop supplement store that sold First Form in Columbia, Missouri.
Cool.
And I would say that he was sort of the catalyst because he's probably a little bit more naturally risk aggressive, a little more naturally like a full blown, like I was selling Beanie Babies out of my trunk entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so we hooked up, and long story, but we became the first franchise of Supplement Superstores out in Columbia. And that jump started it. And once I was in it, I was like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And, since then we've done Scissors and Scotch. We're the franchisee for St. Louis and Kansas City for that. And then we started our own brand, which was KITCH Meals, which they always say like the best brands are the things that are solving your problems that other people also have. And that was just a result from us finally having enough personal resources to, maybe buy some meal prep and get some time back, and just not having an awesome solution that we could find. And so it kind of all came together. But at least for me, I think the thing that runs through all of it is we like service-based brands because touching base with people and actually impacting customers is really important. I also like brands and things that are related to, I don't want to say like inspirational stuff, but things that you can be proud of. I don't know if I'd be the best leader or owner or whatever of like a drop shipping company that made a bunch of margin, but there wasn't really a bigger purpose. It was just like, hey, we're buying step stools on Amazon and we're switching them for something else, and now we're gonna make 40%. Like that'd be cool, but I don't know if that would give me the same level of fulfillment.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And I think it's important to find something, you and I have talked about this before, that helps you tick, because it isn't easy. There's a lot of ups and downs and bumps along the road, and being able to have something you can really get behind passionately and not just the thing that fills your pockets. And I think those are two different styles of, diving into entrepreneurship and leadership.
Yeah.
How cool is it to be, in the early stages of S2, because it's been a massive growth period. I mean, how many stores are there now? Like 30 almost?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say there's 32 now.
Yeah.
But they're really growing. I know on the franchising side, they're looking at growing more. It was cool. I think the coolest thing, though, was I was lucky enough to be a part of it when it wasn't really anything.
Yeah.
And that was really unique because I got to see Andy go from somebody that would talk in a room with, the equivalent of like your staff, right?
Yep.
10 people in a room, and he's talking about the future and all these big things, to him now running an empire that's probably worth in the billions. But just seeing how that grew, and it grew on the backs of people just believing in the bigger vision. And so many entrepreneurs that I've seen that struggle in smaller business, it's because they never really paint that bigger picture. And I was exposed to that really early. And so he would get, you know, a lot of discretionary effort from people because they believed in like the next step. And so instead of just, hey, we want to have a great month this month at the shop or whatever,
Yeah.
it was like, hey, we want to do this, this, and this so that we can build the biggest thing ever. And this, and that was foundational to sort of my journey as an entrepreneur and how we look at business and how we talk about business and how we inspire our people and all that.
Yeah. Well, you got to have a vision that's big enough for everybody to achieve their own goals within it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also important that you can do it in a way that is transparent so that you can talk through the challenges because like we're not, you know, I'm not running a $500 million business or anything, but you know, the growth from your first location to a $10 million business to a 20 to a, you know, what they're eventually at, you know, there's going to be challenges along the way. You're going to lose people along the way. And just being upfront with like, hey, this is going to be really hard. Hey, this next jump is here. You know, hey, the opportunities are like this, but at this point we might have to bring in someone external because, you know, none of us know how to run X, Y, and Z on this bigger enterprise. Just having those conversations, I think, are pretty important, but I'm also not totally to that size, right? So it's like there's a lot there that we don't know.
Well, people value transparency. It's easier to get behind somebody you can actually trust. And when you paint the picture instead of this like sexy vision that feels like there's no flaws in it, it makes it easier for people to like, okay, well, at least he's being real with me. And I understand that this could be challenging, but you know, that whole mentality of coming together typically feels like it gets more simple to bond when there's a little bit of adversity, especially when you talk about it, you know. I just think that people respect that so much more.
Yeah, and I think most people, what they're looking for in a leader that I've found, at least at our level, is they want to feel safe, they want to feel appreciated, they want to feel like there's opportunity for them to grow, and they want to feel that you can be honest with them and have hard conversations but tactfully. And that's been a big thing for us is just, you know, for our business, like for example, in the barbershops, right? You know, the competitive moat there is that people just want to work there, you know, because that's a business that you could start your own little barbershop salon or whatever.
I feel like it's a lot like fitness.
Yes. Yeah. If you have a personal trainer, right, that person could go rent space someplace else. So really, you're not necessarily competing against, you know, all the other gyms. You're competing against that person leaving you because you're not, you know, providing the right experience, you know, being a good boss, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. What do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned around managing and building teams and leading people? Because I know we were already kind of like talking about that. How do you feel like that's become something that you've gotten more comfortable with over the years? Because you've seen it happen both from the side of you being an early stage of being on the other side of it, but also now you have a ton of people that you have to rely on to be able to operate all the different things you have your hands in.
I think for me, delegation, learning how to delegate was huge. And then learning how to follow up on delegation. So it seems to me in like early stage businesses, because I really struggled with this, there's like two types of personalities. There's the delegator where they delegate and they're like, hey, you're in charge, and they just walk away. And then it goes to crap and they're firing, like something bad happens. Or there's the micromanager who, you know, everything in the business is under the control. And so they have this exceptionally run business up to a threshold, depending on the business. It could be $100,000 a month. It could be $5, you know, it could be whatever. But then they hit the cap and then they just won't delegate. And so the challenge for me personally was I was always comfortable giving people additional roles, delegating. I like building that, but learning to follow up so that it was delegation, but with some checks. Because I think one of the challenges I see is a lot of entrepreneurs like the idea of something getting done by somebody else because it's sexy. They're like, oh, you know, Susan does this in my organization. But the reality is that one, the first time you delegate it, that person is going to need some guidance, period. Two, you know, if you check on it the first week, that doesn't guarantee it on the fourth week it's going to be done. And three, for everybody associated with it, ongoing communication is so important. So the second you start missing meetings or check-ins or whatever, it just all explodes. And so what I found was like some of my mentors that were really successful, I noticed were people that were really good at, they might only have 3 meetings a week, but every meeting had an agenda. It checked in on the right stuff. They were putting the right questions out there, and then they were letting good people run with it. And then also just kind of deciding like what level of mistake you're going to put up with. Because even like for us, like last year, I think at KITCH, we tried to throw sort of like a little bit of like our own block party type thing. And it just didn't work. It was like crazy hot. The weekend was a bad weekend that we didn't realize, but there was a bunch of stuff going on. And the person who put it on in our organization actually did an incredible job. It was just a miss on the weekend. And, you know, I could tell that that person was really worried about the result because there just wasn't a lot going on. And, you know, I pulled her aside and I basically said like, hey, like this is an investment in us learning how to do this and you as a leader.
Yep.
Everything here is really well done. Like, you know, there are one or two things, right? But at the end of the day, like the mistake was actually not any of the stuff you did. It was just the timing. So you did 95% of this really well.
Yep.
The 5% is the thing that makes or breaks it. And we just didn't do that great.
Yep.
And so, yeah, did it kind of suck? Sure. But, you know, for both of us, I think she felt really good about the fact that like, yeah, it was a great effort. We were just a little off.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt good that now if we throw an event, like we're going to know it way better, but we're going to really focus on like, does this date make sense? Like, are we overlooking the fact that there's a giant parade downtown that's going to pull people away from everything, etc.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And we recently ran an event where we felt like we had all these ideas. We
Yep.
wanted to make it happen. We put full steam ahead on it, and it turned out solid. It wasn't anything that you would consider a poor experience or poorly ran. Like you said, execution's there on the point, but it's so important, I think, for people to learn that lesson that you just talked about, that the outcome you were expecting doesn't mean that you lost by not getting it. You know what I
No,
mean? Like,
and that person's like one of the best leaders in our businesses right now. And it's because she continues to learn from everything, right?
Yep.
And just improving and growing. And the same is true across a lot of our brands. We've had people who started off a little rough around the edges with stuff. They learn, but they realize that you're willing to like let them fail a little bit. And then instead of freaking out, just being like, hey, this is kind of part of the investment. As long as they're putting the effort in, you know, you're going to continue to invest in them.
yeah, that makes perfect sense, man. I think going back to like building a team, when people, and you mentioned this earlier, when people feel safe
Yeah.
to make mistakes, they're going to be with you a lot longer. Because I think there's that other stereotype where it's like the control freak, and if I do something wrong, then I'm gonna lose my job, or I'm gonna get in trouble, or I'm gonna get demoted.
Yeah.
But being able to create that environment to grow makes a lot of sense. Why you've been able to have so much success, like expanding teams.
Well, I also think there's something, it's hard to talk about. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but like there's going to be little moments, like let's say every week you have a meeting with your main reports, right? At some point in that group over the course of a year, somebody is going to say something that is like against your core values or that doesn't align. And a lot of people will gloss over that. But I feel like once you get to a certain level of leadership, your job is partially just to be the only person in the room that will stop the entire meeting and say like, hey, we don't handle customers like that. I understand that made us an extra $1,000 because we kind of manipulated this thing.
Yeah.
But like, that is not how we do it.
Yeah.
And if we do that again, like you will not be working here.
Yeah.
And if you can establish that even in the moments where, I don't want to say it's easy to pass that up, but where you're always setting the bar for how you handle difficult situations and doing the best with like your core values or whatever it is that you're valuing in
setting
mind.
the standard, drawing the line in the sand. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people miss that. And I was not very good at that for a lot of years. And the better I've gotten at that, the better we've seen success because people gravitate towards that because it's so rare in business to have somebody, you know, stop a whole meeting and be like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Or say like, hey, I don't care that it costs $5,000. It's the right thing to do. And that's what we're about. We're going to win over the long haul. They get proud over that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially when you're holding the standard over the performance outcome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But on both the positive and the negative side of it. Like, because you just use two different examples where it's like, hey, maybe this was an investment that didn't pay off on the back end, but I'm happy with A, B, and C, and here's a lesson we learned, and we move on from it. Or the other way around, where it's like, hey, look what we did. We made this progress. We did all these things, like, but you didn't do it the right way.
And it's weird because like in small business, right? There's a million podcasts like this one and stuff where I feel like there's business leaders of a certain business size trying to talk about things.
Yeah.
And it's like they haven't gotten to a bigger size to like fully test it. And I feel like sometimes when I'm like giving advice, I always try to caution myself and others to like totally follow it because we're only so big, right? We've got I think 14 total locations, which is a decent amount.
Yeah.
But it's still not tested to like 140.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the stuff too, it's tough to know who to listen to because it's like I think I could actually be pretty impactful helping someone get from 1 to 10 now. You know, I think I could be really good at getting someone from 10 to 200, but like I still got to kind of prove that before I feel really comfortable giving that advice.
Yeah.
And I think what I've found over the years is it's sometimes hard to parse out like who to listen to because there's a lot of people
Dude,
that don't know like where their lane is. And it's not to say that they don't have the talent to do more, but like you just got to be kind of thoughtful around the fact that like, I probably shouldn't be telling, somebody who owns 150 Applebee's like how to get to 1,000.
Like you said, you really got to look at things from the lens of not just taking other people's advice, but running that through the filters of your core values. So making sure that it comes across the right way. But
Yep.
is this actually going to be the outcome that I'm looking for? Is it going to meet those expectations? And what happens if it doesn't? Where do I go from there?
Yeah.
How do you manage the time, the energy, the responsibility of, being involved with so many different things at once?
Yeah, I think the delegation part has been huge.
Yeah.
We've got some really incredible leaders. And I think a lot of business owners will say that. They'll be like, oh, I got great people.
Yeah.
We really do. At the level we're at, I think we have an amazing team.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was
Yeah.
just saying, I don't want you to answer the same question twice. So maybe piggybacking on that, what does your day look like since you aren't maybe as involved and
Yep.
hands in? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so one thing I've been doing, and this is again one of those things where it's like, I got to be careful saying this because it's not something I've done for 5 years.
Yeah.
I've been doing it probably the last 6 months where every night, the night before, I really try to go through my schedule for the next day, figure out where I'm at. Very easy stuff, right? Everyone does that
Yep.
to a point. But then add in for each business that I'm involved in some key things that I think will push the ball forward that are not what I would consider like checkbox,
Mhm.
right? So like a checkbox thing is like you have to file a tax form. Like you kind of just have to do that.
Yeah.
But that's not driving the business forward. It's not really going to help anything. So I try to do at least one or two things. I say daily, but it's probably more weekly that are like truly transformational in terms of evaluating something like, hey, is this marketing approach even working? Like, forget diving into the weeds on, the marketing invoices and like just top down looking at it more holistically.
Yep.
And then the other thing is just being really relentless on scheduling meetings that have to have agendas and then following up. So
Yep.
one thing that I've been doing more recently as well is if I can, it's not perfect, but if I can, actually schedule buffer time after meetings or try to end meetings early so that you can use the meeting time slot on your calendar to actually do the reply or whatever the follow-up exercise
Yep.
is that you need from it.
Yep.
Because what I found, and a lot of people do this, is you're like, I want to be successful. And so you look at your schedule, like I got it 8 hours today or whatever. And so it's like, I got a meeting at 9 and 10 and 11 and 12, and you book your whole day. But what you don't realize is like the meeting at 9, there's actually 15 minutes of post work,
Yep.
a follow-up email, something you have to do, a quick thing in your Dropbox.
Yep.
And that's where most people miss. And then that meeting gets lost in the bulk of their day.
Yeah.
And then the next day, they don't probably do quite as good of a follow-up on it.
For
And
sure.
so what I found is if I can book like just a little bit more time, and I got it from someone who's way more successful than I am, it's a way that you can just build in that and do a really good job at the follow-up that most people just drop the ball on.
Yeah. Well, dude, that resonates with me a ton because Tuesdays every week I have back-to-back meetings with people that have more responsibility in the business than just showing up and
Yep.
servicing things. And I am way better at delivering a recap in that last 10 to 15 minutes of that meeting than I am being like, use that time to talk and try
Yep.
to go back through it. But it makes a ton of sense. I think that, you talk about like the devil's in the details and being able to actually stay on track with helping other people take the things you talk about and run with them. But if using that follow-up to come back around the next week and say, okay, here's what we talked about in great detail.
Yep.
What challenges did you have? What went well? What didn't? How can I help you continue to move forward or check the box and find the next thing,
Well, and like I met with a guy the other day who really impressive local business guy. And what amazed me about him was that it is cool. He has an assistant who does a lot for him, but like every part of the interaction was like a little higher level
Mm-hmm.
than I'm used to. And it was really cool because it was like, I shot him a message. We talked. He said, hey, let's meet. His assistant scheduled the time. She reached out to confirm the time. She asked me what type of coffee I'd like for the meeting.
Dude, I
Now,
love
granted,
it.
and granted, like not everyone's going to have an assistant or whatever,
Yeah.
fine. But it was just like, that was top notch. I was greeted right when I came into his office for the whole thing, very professionally. Like people knew my name. Afterwards, I got like almost like a little recap thing from him. And then we actually connected on sort of like a mastermind thing after that. And even during that, everything had a great agenda. It was very positive. It flowed well. Every minute of the thing felt like it was purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows like most of the time when I meet somebody who's doing what I would consider a little better than me in the business world, just, keeping score on that.
Yeah.
It's like there's usually a level of sophistication around their processes that is just a little bit better, with the exception being like the savants. Like you meet some marketing genius who's like, listen, I'm not very good at running anything, but I can put 10,000 people into your business, in
Yeah.
a month. Like those people can hide a lot of flaws, but a lot
Yeah.
of the people that I would consider are more like, hey, we're going to go 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3 are just incredible at those little details
Yeah.
that most people drop the ball on.
Yeah. But you mentioned too, big Dan Martell fan, and he talks
Yeah.
about one of the first things you should do when you get to a certain point is hire an executive assistant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't quite gotten to the point to where I feel like I could justify anything like that. Have you ever had anybody that's helped you with, calendar management, inbox management, schedule, like all the different things?
I sort of flirted with it, but we
Yeah.
we actually have an internal hire that works for us, and it was one of those where we brought her in with maybe the idea of doing some of that, and then she got in and she was so amazing. It's like, this is like, you need to be just doing more than that.
Yeah.
So she actually helps us like on a higher HR level and has
Yeah.
been doing a bunch of great stuff. But I've contemplated it. I think there's a personal kind of limiting belief that I have to get over of like, it feels weird.
Dude, same.
You know what I mean? Like if we were going to hang out this weekend or something and I was really busy, it would feel weird to me to be like, hey, my assistant's going to reach out and we'll schedule that dinner.
So
But like
strange.
legitimately, that's how you use those people,
Yeah.
because it's like, hey, every day I spend an hour and a half, 2 hours in my email doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And in reality, I could just be selling, people on the gym, or I could be deep diving into the marketing effort on KITCH or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's something that I'm really thinking about, because I've read Buy Back Your Time by
Yep.
Martell.
Great book.
Yep. And then the guy who had the assistant was like preaching how awesome it was. But it does feel weird. And that might also be because I don't come from like a ton of money, so I'm not
Same.
used to having a ton of people just like doting on you.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels a little bit like patting yourself on the back,
Yeah. It really does. And I've tried in so many different ways to take things from that book that have been helpful and ways to buy back my time in other areas. Like, I'm not going to mow my yard. I know a lot of dudes take a ton of pride in like
Yep.
how nice their yard looks.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, like I think that there's value in, having a nice place to live and something to be proud of. But like, I'm not going to do that. We have people come deep clean our house.
Yep.
And we recently had somebody come in just once a week and just kind of help us get our shit together at home so that we don't come back into chaos. Having kids, having a meal cooked, have the house
Yep.
nice and picked up. Like, so we're trying to find ways to do that in other areas. But one of the things that I always come back to is, man, it'd be really nice to get back all the little tedious tasks that suck the time out of my schedule. You know what I mean?
Yep. And it's a little bit of a risk too, right? Because if you're making good money but not great money, it's like, do I want to take that from good money to okay money to bring somebody in to maybe help me make great
Yep.
money? And so you have to almost believe that, what are you doing with the time? And then the other thing is like, and this is where, I think a lot of people struggle too, is they think, okay, like if I don't cut my grass on Saturday, what am I going to do in place of that? Because if you pay to have someone cut your grass, you could argue that, hey, that time with my family's worth it. Very objectively, like,
Yeah.
fine. But if you look at like Martell, he would say, you do that and most likely you add 2 more hours to your work week.
Yeah.
And so one of the challenges I've seen too is like, okay, I have someone cut my grass on Sunday. Well, am I really going to get on my computer in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
Or am I going to go spend time with my family?
Yeah.
And sometimes, especially with younger kids, it doesn't seem like it gives you work time back.
Yep.
Which could still be worth it, but it's like tougher to justify on an ROI basis.
For sure. And I think even then too, going back and finding that balance of how much money am I really striving for, or how much life am I trying to buy
Yeah.
back too? So I think I've done my best to try to make it more from a place of like, I'd rather have that few hours to spend time with my family on the weekend. So maybe I don't make the money or I lose out on that investment, but
Yeah.
it beats the hell out of spending time outside while they're not hanging out with you. you
Yeah.
know?
No, I totally get that.
Yeah, you got to do that. So on top of business, obviously you do things to take care of your own health and fitness. You're
Yep.
a jiu-jitsu guy. I know obviously you've stayed in good shape to be able to perform there. Tell me a little bit about how you manage squeezing in the training, doing things that help you be the best version of yourself so you can show up
Yeah.
as a great business leader, as a great father, as a great husband. How do you prioritize training with all the things you have going on?
So right now I go to 2 gyms. I go to a place called Fifth Street downtown. I live downtown.
Yep.
Or I'd probably come here.
You
But
don't
I go,
have to justify that.
no, for real. No, for real. Because I do like you guys and I like the way you train. But I go to Fifth Street downtown,
Yep.
which is
I've
called-
heard good things. One of our
Yeah.
coaches used to work there. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, good place. But essentially, it's like a kind of a hit / weightlifting place. Do that Monday, Wednesday typically is in the morning. Like
Cool.
first thing, my wife and I have this great routine. While she gets ready, I make breakfast and then kind of see her and my daughter off. And it just really works for us. And then I go to the gym and then I can start my work day at 8:30 or whatever.
Nice.
But that's Monday, Wednesday. Jiu-jitsu I usually do Tuesday, Thursday at 7 a.m.
Yep.
Squeeze it in on the weekend when I can, once or twice. Sometimes I'll get like a night class in after my daughter goes to sleep, but it just sort of depends. But my workouts are essentially bookended around my days, most days.
Yep.
And then if like yesterday I slept terribly, so I got up at 3 a.m. and I started working. So like if I happen to get up early, I'll try to put in a bunch of work before anyone else is awake.
Yep.
And so that gives me a little more freedom. Maybe I'll work out midday or something because I have a bit of a flexible schedule. But I kind of view it as like, for me, it's more mentally important. I start to get grumpy if I don't train.
Same, dude.
And it's not so much the physical side. I mean, the physical is great, but
Yep.
I'm in reasonably good shape. I eat well. It's like I can miss a day, but it's on the mental that I notice it. And then for me, I've always enjoyed jiu-jitsu because it's a path. Like it's part of the journey. It takes forever to get promoted.
Yeah.
I'm at a pretty competitive gym. Shout out to Vava at Body Fit. And they're amazing. But like I view it as like, it's going to be a 15, 20-year journey.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for almost 10. I'm a purple belt, which just means you're kind of in the middle, you do okay. But it's something to strive for, and it's fun because you can, if I have the time, I can ramp up, I can compete, I can do all that. But otherwise, you go there, really physical, it's sort of a confidence builder too. And it's just something to be chasing.
Yeah.
And I think what's important to me, I was actually talking to Vava, my coach. His name's David, but Vava's like his Portuguese fake name, but he's great. And I competed just a couple weekends ago, and he said, "Hey, you gotta be a little less nice when you compete. Like it looks like you're just like having fun, and as a result, like I think that's part of the reason sometimes you're not as like relentless. Like I do okay, but I've never been like an absolute dominant competitor." I said, I think part of the challenge is I realize how much I have going on in the other parts of my life,
Yep.
and so it's sort of a defense mechanism of like I do this for fun. This is my thing. But I'm really working on, within that being able to, kind of flip the switch and say like, hey, maybe not this month, but next month, if I am going to compete, if I am going to do that, I'm going to actually take it really seriously.
Yep.
If I'm going to be here, I'm going to really be here to try to win and not like hurt people or anything, but just go that route.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually a good learning curve. I really thought about it for a long time just because it impacted me because it was really good coaching advice. But it just highlights, everyone I think has little stories they tell themselves when they're uncomfortable or they feel vulnerable or whatever, and mine was like, I'm busy. I have this business stuff. And so like, I'm not going to be a really great competitor at this hobby that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And that may be true, but it actually doesn't serve me like at all. I'm way better off saying like, okay, I'm going to train as much as I can for this thing without screwing up my family life and screwing up my business. But when I'm here, I'm going to try to be the best.
Yeah.
And so, it even went to show me like, hey, there's so many things in my life that I'm not failing, but like could absolutely improve on. And, my passion is really like leadership and development and all that. And here I am, struggling with the same mental problems that, I'll talk to other people about. So,
Well, I think that's such a good lesson is so many people look at someone who's successful and they think they have it all figured out and that they've got it all right and that everything is going smoothly and they don't have any challenges and they don't run into their own mental barriers or limiting beliefs or whatever you want to call it.
I will say though, one thing that I've found, which I think is important though, is anyone that I've looked up to, the closer I've gotten to them, the more I looked up to them, like that type of person is, I think to be really successful in business where personalities and interpersonal relationships are key. Again, not like a drop shipping business.
Yeah.
You have to be somewhat impressive in terms of how you treat people and sort of the balance. Because, if you're going to talk about core values and all this stuff, you don't necessarily have to be perfect. But if someone like starts to know you better, you have to live that way most of the time.
Yeah,
the
dude,
whole
you got to
thing,
walk the walk.
yeah, it just looks like bullshit if not. If you're talking about, hey, you got to do the right thing, you got to do this, and we live these core values at work, and then they find out you're cheating on your wife, it's like the whole thing falls apart.
No shit.
And that's one thing I've started to realize over the years is like some of the people that I think struggle, the deeper you get into their like actual person, you're like, oh, I kind of understand why no one on their team wants to follow him because the guy's actually kind of a dick at home.
Yeah.
Or like he doesn't actually treat people well when stuff's going bad.
Well, it's easy to put the surface level out there and say all the right things. And in today's day and age, you can put the Instagram reels up and make sure everybody knows that you're saying all of the perfect stuff,
Yeah. And like one of the best things I did was I totally got off social media.
Yeah, you're not really like you have no social media presence.
No, well, so I have social media, but I
Okay.
put it on a separate iPad
Yep.
that I don't check unless I want to check social media. So I'll
Yeah.
check it like once a week. And luckily, like through all the business stuff, I have people that check our business socials to make
Yeah.
sure nothing crazy happens. But it was like the best thing for my mental health. Not
I
because I
can
was
imagine.
like not even comparing myself to people. I've never really had that issue, but just like the boredom of scrolling and all that.
Hmm.
And it replaced that with like more positive stuff.
Hmm. Because it's easy, even if you aren't intentionally looking to compare, like it's human nature, dude. When all you see and all you're exposed to are the things that consume your time and energy, you're naturally going to start to fade into that, you know?
Yeah, and I think personality wise, for me, it was more of just the distraction too. It's just
Hmm.
one more thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't recommend that more. And then if you have to have social for work or something, just put it on a different device, and then
Yep.
you just check it at an interval that is
It's good
appropriate to your.
advice.
Yeah, dude, check it. Say you get a bunch of messages for leads at your gym.
Yep.
It's like, okay, I'm going to check it at 6 a.m., at noon, and at 6 p.m. on the separate iPad.
Yep.
And then that way, if you're at home, you bring out the separate iPad and you're just scrolling. You're like, what am I doing? This is
Yep.
my work, check iPad.
Yep. It's a good boundary.
Yeah. For those 2 weeks to just not touch your phone, which is me.
I mean, I'm the same way.
Yeah, yeah.
But especially when it's integrated with everything else, the people you have to talk to through text or Slack or
Yep.
whatever communication platforms you use. But no, dude, I think that's great. From a discipline standpoint, do you think that you've gotten a lot of that discipline through your training, or was that instilled in you before, like, and like how you use that in business? You know what I mean? Because you talked about that from both
Yeah.
sides.
I think I always had it because I was always, um,
You talked about feeling different or weird or
yeah. Like, so this is so random, but when I was in high school, I was a soccer goalie. When I was in high school, I was like obsessed with the fact that I didn't have a good vertical.
yeah,
I was like, oh, I feel like I could make really cool saves. I had a good so I'd like go in my garage when I was like a freshman, and I made my parents buy jump boxes, and I would
yeah.
just do that for like an hour every night. And so I was always like a little bit of a psycho with like that kind of stuff and training, and so I had that foundation. What I actually had to learn to do more was, and I think this is a really good learning point for people out there, is like I was amazing at all of these things that required a ton of discipline that no one wanted to do, and they weren't the right thing for my sport.
Yeah.
So like I was literally like the fastest guy on my soccer team. Like we did the 2 mile test or whatever, and I ran like whatever it was, and like sub 5:30 miles. But I was the goalie. You don't actually have to run a 5:30 mile.
Yeah, you
But
don't-
you know what you actually should be pretty good at is like winning balls in the air, which I'm a little short, so I wasn't the best at. But like I didn't practice that enough. My ball skills were not amazing because I didn't like love
Yeah.
that. And so here I was, putting in all this effort. I was running ski hills in the summer at, my dad's condo association. They had this little bunny hill and all this shit that made me look like I was, this like hard dude.
Yeah.
And in reality, like I should have just been juggling a soccer ball and like passing.
Yeah.
And so I spent all this time because it looked good and it made me feel like a badass, and it did nothing to help my college prospects.
Yeah, but maybe not from a soccer standpoint, but I think intangibly that probably built a lot of other things that ended up playing a role in their success after sports.
No, it certainly did, but I always think about that because I think in business too, and in life in general, it's really easy to think that you're disciplined at doing the things that you enjoy doing that other people think are disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
So if you love running and someone hates running and you're like, dude, I ran a marathon yesterday. They're like, that is, that would take me a year of training and thinking about. For you, it's like not that hard. For you, the hard thing
Dude.
might be to like
Yes.
legitimately brush your teeth every day.
Yeah.
Because you just hate brush. Like it's the weirdest dichotomy, but no one ever thinks like that.
On the same hand, you also think about the difference between working hard and working smart. And
Yeah.
just working hard at something doesn't necessarily entitle you to a certain outcome.
Yep.
That's a perfect example of that, where you're like, I was working hard, I was doing all those things that should make me a better goalie, but you weren't necessarily working hard on the right thing.
Yeah.
I think people get caught up in that in business, they get caught up in that in fitness, all kinds of different stuff.
And they also forget too, like, and fitness is the worst for this, where it's like some dude who has a super impressive physique, and then he's on his Instagram or whatever, and he's talking about like politics, or he, is basically feeling like he's superior to somebody who is really out of shape, but is like a phenomenal parent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, dude, it's hard because that visual thing is so visual. If you're in
Yep.
shape, you look in shape, you look amazing.
Yep.
And so viscerally, it's like, wow, that guy's got it together. But the rest of his life could be a total dumpster fire. He's just got
And
an
nobody
amazing six
knows.
pack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas like the guy who's super fat, but every other part of his life he takes care of people, in a lot of ways is probably more impressive. He just looks bad because the one thing he lets go is himself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like the counter argument, right? But to me, you just always got to dig a little deeper on anything you see online or whatever, because yeah, it's hard to know who's like actually winning.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a couple of guys I know who are sort of in the world where they know ultra wealthy individuals,
Yep.
like super, super rich people. And they're like, dude, they're really no happier than you or I, So even that, here we are, business owners talking about leadership and shit. And we're looking at somebody who is worth, $10 billion. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, they're my God, they just did everything. They sold their software company, whatever. And like, for all we know, that guy has a terrible marriage. Like
Mm-hmm.
he hates his life. Yeah, he's got more money than God, but like he's kind of bored. So it's tough to evaluate really. I don't want to say who's winning, but like even what winning looks like, because there's so many facets to it. And the only thing you can count really is like money and that outward stuff.
Yeah, there's not really like objective measures for the other side of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like, when you die, if your kids are at your, deathbed basically, and they're like, you were the best dad ever, that's going to matter a lot more than your yacht.
Mm-hmm.
But simultaneously, like throughout your whole life, you always wanted the yacht.
Are you're familiar with Cody Sanchez?
Yeah. What is that? Main Street Millionaire or something?
Contrarian something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Either way, she shared something the other day that I thought was really cool. And it was like, there's only 3 people you need to worry about impressing. And it's not your parents and it's not your kids. It's your 8-year-old self, your 80-year-old self, and who you are today.
Yeah, which is really good.
And I was like, man, that's gold.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the things you're working on right now. You got the KITCH shirt on. I know
Yep.
KITCH, it feels like from when I talked to you, KITCH is kind of like your main focus. Is that right or no?
It sort of depends on the day.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'll just kind of go through the brand. Like KITCH wise, we are really working on refining our menus, trying to figure out what the customer here in KC is going to really love. We've added a lot of ancillary stuff. We found an awesome company that makes homegrown, like small farm beef jerky.
Yeah.
So we're starting to offer that.
I just tried that for the first time the other day.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's solid.
So yeah, that's our KITCH jerky. It's amazing. We just launched pizzas, which are,
Have not tried them yet, but I'm a big pizza guy. So.
Yep, really good. So we're trying to expand the brand offering, and then simultaneously we're looking at over the next, call it 6 to 12 months, really trying to add additional retail footprint here.
Yeah.
So a couple other locations if possible. Scissors and Scotch, we've been steadily growing. So we've got 6 locations, 5 here, 1 in St. Louis. Really just trying to grow that, build the leadership team. There's some fun stuff kind of coming up with that in terms of just growth, looking at new locations. And then S2, sort of the same, like trying to just really double down, improve our customer service experience, just make sure things are kind of rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And, for us, a lot of stuff, because it's retail, it's, real estate dependent.
Yeah.
It's leadership dependent at the ground level of like sort of that retail location.
Mm-hmm.
So much of it is essentially like, growing is about, do you have the right spot? Do you have the right
people?
team?
Yeah.
And then do you have the capital, which has been, as you well know, and a lot of business owners, like with the interest rate environment and stuff, it's just a little different right now than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because 5 years ago, like you could basically go out and get money for nothing. So if you wanted to take a risk and you wanted to debt finance it, it was like
Dirt cheap.
Yeah, 2%.
Yeah.
So now if you're doing, traditional lending to grow, even some of the bigger players where I know people that have, larger brands, they're just being a little more conservative.
Yeah.
And for us, what conservative just means is like we want to make sure our people are rock solid so that when we grow, we know that those operations are going to be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I can align to that. A big part of our focus has been on how do we give the best fulfillment experience and service to our clients and our customer base.
Yep.
But how do we also do the same for our team and give them opportunities to continue to grow and share that vision with them so that they feel like they're a part of the bigger picture and where we're going.
Well, and you guys, I mean, you have an awesome team, and I really I think why we get along too is both of us, I think, subscribe to the idea that it's a lot more fun and it's a lot better to try to be the best in your space.
Hell yeah.
As opposed to being a commoditized like middle ground.
Hell yeah.
Because like it's way more fun. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's way more fun to be like, hey, talking to your team, like, hey, we're probably a little more expensive, but like we are absolutely trying to be the best version of what this is.
Yeah.
Period. And that is so much cooler than being like, hey, we're kind of in the middle. Like we don't want to do, too crazy, right? Because, the costs don't work. We don't want to be too over the top with our clients. We just kind of want to go. And that just doesn't seem like a whole lot of fun.
And dude, from my experience, especially in the fitness industry, there's really only 2 ways to win. You can be on the higher end or you can be on the lower end. And I don't want to be known for something that's cheap.
Yep.
I want to be known for something that's valuable and life-changing. And to me, you talk early in this conversation about fulfillment. The best fulfillment I can give is giving people the best opportunity to see success and how we can help them create that, whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
So I think that's the best case scenario for everybody to win, is to go out and try to be the best at what you want to do, no matter if it's, prepping meals for people to be able to live healthier and eat healthier, or it's going out and trying to get them a good workout,
Well, and like I think too, now that I've got one daughter and then another kid on the way, it's like, looking at things and hoping that you can. Business is important, but it's something that's a part of your life. Can you be proud of it? Can you build something that you can show to your kids and give them experiences where they're not just proud of the outcome, but like seeing you as somebody that is doing something worthwhile, right?
Yeah, man.
And at least like not necessarily inspiring them and like, oh my God, there's my dad or my mom's so good, but rather like, can you just be someone that then they look to? They're like, my dad works hard. He treats people right.
Yeah,
like,
man.
There's good opportunities. Like, maybe I learned a thing or two, even if, I want to play the violin and that's my dream, not running a business.
Yeah.
But that's really changed my perspective.
Kids will do that.
Yeah. And
Kids
I
will
mean,
do that.
Our kids are like similar-ish age. So it's
Yeah.
like, when they're young too, you're just running.
Yeah. But it's part of the process, brother.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, we could probably talk for another like 6 hours. But anything else you'd like to share with anybody? Where can they find you? I know you're not a big social guy, but how can people?
Yeah. So the easiest way to find our brands, www.getkitch.com. We service all Kansas City, healthy meal prep, prepared meals. We're really proud of the quality that we put out, and it's all localized here. So if you order it with a delivery or a la carte, never frozen, it's always our people. Scissors and Scotch, scissorscotch.com. We cut awesome hair. We make awesome cocktails.
Yeah.
All over KC, St. Louis. And then Supplement Superstores. I know you've had the local guys on here.
Yeah.
Our stores aren't in KC, but awesome brand. Definitely support them. Me personally, find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram,
Yep.
Braden Posey. But, I think the last thing I want to share is I really have enjoyed connecting with you and seeing kind of the progress that you've built, because there's a lot of people in the gym space, but I think you're trying to do it the right way. I know you care about your people. I mean, you're certainly a great dad. You're
Appreciate
a great
that,
husband,
man.
from what I can tell, right? But yeah, it's honestly been a privilege to get to be a friend of yours. And, eventually we should actually hang out like with
Yeah,
our
that'd be great.
significant others.
One of these days we'll carve it into the calendar.
Yeah, but if not, we'll just keep going to coffee and like talking for hours when it's just you and me. So, but I
Well,
appreciate
hey,
you
man,
having me on.
yeah, I appreciate that. And the respect is mutual, dude. It's been a pleasure to be a part of, kind of having you influence some of the different decisions I've made over the time. I look up to you for different guidance and advice. But yeah, man, this probably will not be the last time we connect on something like this, but appreciate you coming on the show. We're going to wrap it up for today. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard and want to hear more, you can follow us on social media and tune in anywhere you listen to podcasts.